My name is Martha Pasternak, and I am your host for today. Now, our theme for this year is coaching with hope through chaos. You may be asking yourself, what is Quo Vadis? You may already know because you speak Latin, or you have Googled it. It means, coaches, where are you going? Our president, Dr. Shan Morthy, will tell us a bit more about Quo Vadis in just a minute. We have an awesome week of speakers lined up to share thought-provoking insights and stimulate discussion. We encourage you to join in with us, ask questions, share your insights and your own wisdom with us. And here's what I'm going to tell you quickly what we can look forward to for the rest of this week. Now, yesterday, we had Marco Iafrate from Canada. He's a professional speaker, coach, and facilitator. He spoke to us about rising to the challenge, overcoming difficult times through values in action. Today, we will be listening to Vicki Garcia, and she's talking to us about establishing a foundation of trust, how conversational intelligence creates hope in chaotic times. Vicki's from the US. On Wednesday, we'll have a panel discussion, Through the Looking Glass, a reflection on the new normal. Isabel Melvin is from Kuala Lumpur. Yesheskel Madanis will join us from Israel. Kavita Shethi, please forgive me for mispronouncing names, will join us from Singapore. On Thursday, we have another panel, Performance Coaching for Leaders. Our panel is all from India, I believe. Ritu Mathur, Saurav Mohanty, and Dr. G. Rajkumar. And Friday, we will celebrate the end of this week with a panel, Coaching for Climate Change will be their topic. Our panel will be Josie McLean from Climate Coaching Alliance, Dr. Shan Morthy from Kuala Lumpur, and Gonzalo de la Canal from Uruguay. Both Shan and Gonzalo are prominent members of the IAC. The moderator for that conversation will be Angeline Nair, who's also prominent in the IAC leadership, and she will speak to us from India. So right now we have a special welcome message to share with you from our president of the International Association of Coaching, Dr. Shan Morthy. Let's listen.
Greetings from the International Association of Coaching. Quo Vadis is a Latin phrase, meaning, where are you going? So Quo Vadis coaching means, where is coaching going? My dear friends, 2020 has been a challenging year for all of us. In an environment that is chaotic, where uncertainty is the only certainty. To ask the question, where are we going, or where coaching is going, might not be an easy question to answer. This year's theme for Quo Vadis series of webinar is Coaching with Hope Through Chaos. How can coaching provide hope through chaos? My dear friends, the IAC defines coaching as a transformative process for personal and professional awareness, discovery, and growth. When the point of reference for change is the past, the point of reference for transformation is the future. As we seek for possibilities for the future, we create hope. Join us for a series of webinars in English, Spanish, and Chinese to learn and share with coaches from all over the world to make a difference for others and to ourselves. I would like to thank all the presenters and the IAC team who have been planning and working for a few months now to make this year's Quo Vadis coaching webinar series purposeful and meaningful for each and every one of us during this time of chaos and uncertainty. Stay safe, stay blessed wherever you are. Thank you.
Whew. Okay. Well, thank you, Dr. Murthy, for that warm welcome. As he mentioned, we do have the speakers all week long. So make sure that you plan to join us for all of our presentations from today until Friday, December 11th. We plan to have it streaming live to our IAC group site on Facebook, but be sure to mark it off on your calendar and invite your colleagues to join you. And now it's my pleasure to introduce you to our featured presenter today, Vicki Garcia, who is our coaching colleague and my trusted friend. I first met Vicki when she was getting her coach certification with the Fearless Living Institute. I really fell in love with her when we were both mentor coaches for the Fearless Living Institute for several years. Vicki and I connected deeply around parenting our daughters. I think my daughter's in her 30s now. I think Vicki is still a teenager. Vicki lives with her husband and teenage daughter in Washington State in the Pacific Northwest of the USA. Trees and mountains are her thing. Cool, crisp, clean air make Vicki happy. She does not mind the rain one bit. I wish I could say the same. And let me share a little bit more about Vicki so you can see why we asked her to present to our global audience this year. Vicki is now a master certified fearless living coach. She's a master certified fearless trainer. She's a speaker and facilitator. She's also, as I mentioned, a master mentor coach with the Fearless Living Institute. Now, Vicki is also certified in conversational intelligence. And that's not all. Vicki is and I might not say this right, but an Inc. 5000 coach. And Vicki, if you need to know more about that, I know very little about that. You can get a hold of Vicki and talk to her about that. Now, here's something I learned recently about Vicki. She used to be a scientist. Vicki has a degree in biological science and worked for a large pharmaceutical company doing drug research. That worked well for her because Vicki is analytical and sees patterns, and she loves to collect data. So as you may realize by now, Vicki is a lifelong learner, one of our dear values at IAC. She's also a loving, warm, results-driven, and she is direct. Again, I mentioned we connected over family. If you go to her website, you'll see all the other things she loves. One that caught my eye is she loves camping in the desert. So all these steps on her path have been made in the name of becoming the professional woman, the wife and mother she is today. So Vicki, welcome to Quo Vadis, and thank you so much for agreeing to present with us today.
You, Martha. That's so sweet. And it's so comforting having you be the person to introduce me and to host. It's
my pleasure.
Thank you.
So tell us all what you will be addressing today.
So I'm going to give you just a little touch of conversational intelligence. I'm going to share a couple of the tools that I use with my clients and hope to inspire us all to look a little bit further into it. It's the body of work is really amazing. It's simple. It's deceptively simple. And it really requires something that I'm always working on, which is being present.
Mm-hmm. So Vicki, take it away.
So let's do it.
Let's do it.
Let me share my screen here. me get, all right. Is that working?
Yes.
Okay. So, let me, all right. So, have you ever had a conversation that didn't go the way that you hoped or planned, including a coaching conversation? Have you ever had a discussion with a client that just, you had one intention for this conversation and it didn't end up the way you wanted it to go? If that's happened to you, you're in really good company, because according to a Stanford research study, 9 out of 10 conversations miss the mark.
Whoa.
9 out of 10. And what I mean by miss the mark is that the people involved in the conversation are each having a different experience of it. They're each giving the conversation different meaning and coming to different conclusions about it. And that's not a great thing. And it makes me think, the times that we're in right now, everything that's been happening in over the course of 2020, I feel a lot of it has to do with us not being able to communicate the way that we intend. And so I know I've experienced this a lot in my personal life. Sometimes conversations just don't work. And I want to tell you, I'm going to be just really transparent and vulnerable here and share with you an experience that I had with a client where our conversation really missed the mark. And I think back on that when I was a new coach. I was just starting out, had coaching skills, but I was really practicing, and I still am. So what happened with this client is we had a few sessions, maybe 3 sessions, and I realized this client could probably really be supported by therapy, either instead of or in addition to coaching. And back when I was a new coach, you know how sometimes as new coaches, we get into that mode of trying too hard. I really wanted to help my client. I really wanted to pull out all the stops. And I thought, this is a perfect addition to what we're doing. So I'm going to present this to her. Well, my intention with it was to help her. And the impact that I was hoping to have was that it would be another way to help her reach the goals that she had told me she wanted to reach. Well, what happened instead is that as soon as I said the word therapy, not even in relation to her, but just said the word, she became very upset with me. And she said, if you even suggest that I go to therapy, we're done. Well, being a new coach, I panicked a little, and guess what I did? I went right ahead with my plan, and I suggested that she think about going to a therapist. And that client fired me on the spot. That was it. I never talked to her again. And that was a long time ago. I was a new coach, and I have to tell you that the kind of the pain of that, the frustration of that stuck with me for a long time. And as my coaching skills got better, as I learned more, and especially after learning about conversational intelligence, I realized, I missed a few key steps. I just missed a couple of key steps. And so I'm going to keep referring to that situation with the client. And I invite you to be thinking about a client situation where maybe you just didn't quite hit the mark with the conversation, or it could be something, a personal conversation that you're having. So I'm going to share just a little bit of conversational intelligence with you today, but you might be thinking, what is conversational intelligence? Oh, and my slides, one second, my slides are not working.
Vicki,
I'm gonna
sometimes
have to.
on the Mac it gets stuck. Maybe you want to stop sharing
Yeah,
and go back to it and probably hit escape and
there we go. Let me
go back
see.
onto it. Sure.
Yeah, my cursor disappeared there for a second. All right, there we go. Can you see that?
No, you want to show again your screen, please.
1 second. All right, let's see. All right,
Good.
how about that?
Perfect. Perfect.
There we go. So what is conversational intelligence? Conversational intelligence is it's a series of conversational rituals that you can use to prime your brain, get it ready for trust and partnership and co-creation. And it's really about the neuroscience and neurochemistry in the brain that it's all the good chemicals that you actually have some control over. And when you get your brain primed for these conversations, it actually increases trust and partnership and mutual success. And I'm just going to barely touch the tip of the iceberg today. Conversational intelligence is such a rich, deep body of work. And I'm going to tell you how to get some more information about it at the end. But first, I want to tell you, oh my goodness, it's not working again. Well, all right. I might need a little technical help. Apparently my cursor has disappeared too.
Again, I would stop sharing. The sharing feature of Zoom takes up a lot of memory, and then little things disappear in there. So maybe you want to keep it in the not in the presentation, but in the edition mode, and it'll be a lot easier. So there you go.
All right. Well, my cursor has disappeared, so let me just see if I can even stop sharing. Hang on. I've got to guess
No
where
worries.
it is.
Now you're showing Judith Glade.
Yeah, but I have no control over it.
Oh, then stop sharing.
Yeah, I've got to
Go back
get,
on edition.
there we go. There we go. Okay, one more time. Oh my goodness. Let me, I apologize.
No need. It happens.
You're making me feel great.
Yeah, this is interesting. 1 second. All right, we're going to try it this way. Yeah, I think I might have to leave it on this view if that's okay. All right, so Judith Glazer. Judith, I could fill 6 slides with her accomplishments and accolades, but what I really want to tell you about is that Judith had this way about her where she was so deeply present. I've never experienced this before, so deeply present. She had no ego. She was very just transparent and vulnerable and could connect in a way I never experienced before. So she's the creator of CIQ and really studied cultures and people and loved this work. And I'm just going to give you a tiny bit of it today. And like I said, I'm going to give you another way to look up information about Judith and CIQ. So this quote is my favorite quote by Judith, and it's really what helped me realize just how important this idea of conversational intelligence is. That getting to the next level of greatness depends on the quality of the culture, which depends on the quality of the relationships, which depends on the quality of the conversations. So everything happens through conversation. Now, I believe this quote, she is talking about, when she mentions culture, she is referring to organizational culture, like in a company. Yet all of us have a culture at home. We have a culture within our business, our coaching business. We have a culture in our friends group. So I want you to keep that in mind, that every single conversation that we have is leading to the quality of that culture and enabling us to get to our next individual level of greatness. It really matters. And if 9 out of 10 conversations miss the mark and everything happens through conversation, we have a little bit of work to do, especially as coaches, especially in a time that we're living in where people are really having a hard time communicating with each other. This work is vital. So this is the conversational dashboard. While I explain a little bit about what this is, I invite you to think about the last coaching conversation or personal conversation you had, maybe even one that was a little bit challenging for you, and keep that in mind as I'm telling you a little bit about this. So you'll notice the beautiful colors on this dashboard, and they represent parts of your brain. So the red and orange part of the dashboard really represents the part of your brain called the amygdala. And the amygdala is where your fear memories reside, and it's really a very limited part of your brain. Now, the blue and green side represent your prefrontal cortex, which is your higher thinking brain, your executive brain, and it's where all of our highest thinking capabilities come from, and it's where our ability to regulate our emotions is located. Now, when the amygdala part of your brain, that red part, is triggered, it shuts down your prefrontal cortex. And I do mean it shuts down. So I don't know if you've ever been in a state where you are triggered or upset and can't think or can't control your emotions. Well, this is why. You literally can't. This is how your brain works. So this dashboard represents ways that we can be present and listening in a conversation. It's how we are showing up and what's going on in our brain. So when you're on the left side of this dashboard, you're very focused on you're focused on yourself, and you're listening from that place. You are having low trust, and you might even be in a state of what Judith called resistor. And when you're in resistor, you are not open to hearing the other person's viewpoints. You're pretty closed down. Your brain is closed down. When you're over in skeptic, you want to be open, but you're feeling a little bit tentative, and you're not sure whether you're accepted. You're not sure whether it's safe. So you're feeling tentative. When you move up into the part that's that yellow-orange, now you're in conditional trust, and you're kind of waiting to see, is this safe? Am I accepted? You're holding back a little, and you're listening from that place too. As you start to move over into what Judith called experimenter, that's not the typical spelling when you think of experimenter. She spelled it that way intentionally. because when you're in that place of listening, you are the mentor of the experiment. And you're starting to move into listening from a place of we. You're filtering through we instead of I. And as you move all the way over into the right side where it's very green, now you're in what she called co-creator. You're truly able to have transformational conversations. There's very high trust here. And this is where your prefrontal cortex is completely open. Your amygdala isn't interfering with that. And what happens when your prefrontal cortex is really open, the neurochemistry that's happening is you have a flood of oxytocin. You may have heard of the neurochemical oxytocin. They kind of call it the love hormone or the hug hormone. And it's when we're happy and experiencing positive things, our brains get a flood of this versus the flood of cortisol that can happen when your amygdala is triggered. So the crazy thing about this is that you actually have some control over these neurochemicals in your brain. So thinking back to the conversation I had with my client that didn't go well, I can see where I was on this dashboard, and I was a little bit in that wait and see area. I was moving towards experimenter, and I really wanted to be in co-creator with her, but I didn't lay the foundation for that, which I'm going to tell you about in a minute. And I realize now that my clients was probably, well, once I mentioned the word therapy, she was definitely way over in resistor. And that's the protection mode. When you're in that space, or the person you're talking to is in that space, it's all about protecting yourself. So there is no possibility for co-creation. So one of the ways that we can set ourselves up for being in that partnering mode and in the high trust co-creator mode is by using the trust model, TRUST. There's 5 steps, and this is really deceptively simple. And I invite you to listen for insight. It would be really easy to look at this and think, yeah, I know what those things are, I get it. Yet doing it, actually embodying it, takes a different level of being present. So I invite you to listen for insight and see what lands here so that you can practice it in your coaching practice. I'm going to go through each one of these. So step 1, the transparency step. This really aligns with ISC mastery number 1, establishing and maintaining trust, a relationship of trust. Now, when we're listening in step 1, it's really about looking for what are the threats that my client might be experiencing? What are the fears that my client has? And being transparent about those. And asking yourself, how can I create that safe environment and really share threats that might stand in the way? And when I think back to my conversation with my client, I miss this. I didn't give a second's thought to, is she going to see my mention of therapy as a threat? And I didn't test that out. And you're going to see that as I move through these steps, that there were opportunities for me to sort of test the waters. And I didn't know that. So this is really about, quieting the amygdala, that part of your brain where the fear resides, and activating your prefrontal cortex, where all your higher thinking is, and activating your heart, really bringing your heart in. And it's, looking at how can I help the other person shift from maybe those protect modes to partnering modes. So transparency, subduing those threats. Now, the next step is relationship. This step is all about listening to connect and focusing on connection. And it ties in with IAC Mastery number 3, which is engaged listening. Now, here you're establishing rapport and really looking to prime the conversation for trust and openness. Now, on this day with this client, I didn't do this either. I was so eager to present to her what I thought was the solution for her that I didn't pay attention to this step. I didn't take the time to be present, really present with her, and make sure that we were both relaxed and that we connected first. I was too excited. I don't know if you've ever experienced that in a coaching conversation, but I got a little ahead of myself. I was excited. So this step of relationship and focusing on relationship really increases that flow of oxytocin. And remember, that's the chemical that really opens up the higher thinking part of your brain and allows you to regulate emotions. And it reduces cortisol. And cortisol is what you get in your brain when you're triggered, when your amygdala is triggered. So step 2, relationship. Step 3, understanding. Listening to understand. This step is really about how can I step into the other person's shoes? How can I think about how they might be seeing the world, how they might be seeing this conversation, and to stay open and non-judgmental. I feel like this is one right now that we as a world, and especially with our situation in the United States, we're not doing this. We're not listening to understand. We're not looking at what is this other person experiencing. And in a coaching session, this is so important. And it's, if I had thought for a moment about what my client might be experiencing based on how I was showing up and presenting her this information, our conversation might have gone a little bit different. And this is really about looking for how can I bridge the gap between our realities. The two people in a conversation, remember I said when it misses the mark, it is because you're each experiencing a different reality. So really intentionally thinking about how can I bridge that? Even if I'm not sure what those differences are, just having the presence of mind to think there probably are differences, and how can I lean into that and find out what they are and then bridge the gap. This step really lowers that uncertainty and it activates empathy, which is so important in a coaching conversation in particular. I really could have used this back with my client. I really could have used this. So step 1 was transparency. Step 2 is relationship. Step 3 is understanding. Step 4 is shared success. So you're really listening for opportunities to co-create strategies and mutual success. And this is really about, releasing your attachment to being right, really elevating your curiosity about the other person and what might be possible. And I feel like this is one of the places where Judith really was amazing. That she had no attachment to being right. She was so open to co-creating. And, you know, how can we reduce conflict and understand each other a little bit better? And I didn't include my client in that process of getting to the point of maybe suggesting therapy. I didn't do this. I'm making myself sound like a terrible coach, but I have to tell you, it was way back in the beginning, and I've learned so much from this. I've learned so much. And I feel that this shared success part is sometimes missing for beginner coaches, because we want to be doing a good job and sometimes forget to include the client in that process. And this step 4, shared success, actually really aligns with IAC Mastery number 8, which is inviting possibility. It's looking at what is possible for your relationship and for the client. When you can really be in this shared success space, it really rapidly creates understanding, discovery, innovation, and new ways of thinking, which is why co-creation is so important. When you can get to that place, there's exponential growth. So shared success. The final step. Step 5, test assumptions and tell the truth. This is where you close reality gaps. If you don't know what the reality gaps are, you can't bridge them. And this is where you test them. You start to find out. And it is about speaking with candor. I call it pointing out the elephant in the room. If you feel a certain energy with your client, you ask about it. You test the waters. You open it up so that you can both tell the truth about what your current reality is in the moment. And this is the one that I really missed with that client. I didn't test my assumption that therapy might be a great resource for her. I didn't test it. I just went ahead and suggested it. And this is, when you can do this, it fully activates those trust networks and your executive brain and your heart. And now it's kind of, now you're cooking. When you get to this place in a conversation, it really is co-creating. You're moving back and forth. You're very open to whatever the other person has to say. You're really focused on bridging those gaps. And I felt like this step really aligns with 2 IAC masteries. And afterwards, I'd love to hear your opinion, Martha, or anybody, on whether I hit the mark on these. But number 4, processing in the present, which really looking at whatever is coming up in the moment. And 5, expressing, how the coach is showing up and expressing. And I feel that sometimes as coaches, we miss this step. We don't want to test assumptions or maybe even tell our truth in the moment. Yet it's required if we really want to have those high levels of trust and be over on the right, that blue-green side of the dashboard. It's all needed. So all 5 of these steps, and again, they don't go really linearly. You're going to kind of move back and forth through all of these, but it's really what will help you align your intention for your conversation with the impact that you're actually having. And that's my hope for you in learning about this trust model, is that as a coach, you can go into a coaching conversation with your intention and really have the impact that you want, instead of missing the mark like I did with that client so many years ago. I'm grateful for that experience, because I bring it into every coaching conversation I have. I bring the awareness and the insights I had about that while I'm using this trust model. So I hope this was impactful for you, or as impactful as it is on me when I use it with my clients. And if you are interested in learning a little bit more about Judith, she has, I think, 7 books, but these are the 3 that I would recommend that you start with if you want to look her up. The first is Conversational Intelligence, How Great Leaders Build Trust and Get Extraordinary Results. The second is called Creating We. And the third is The DNA of Leadership. And they're all very, very rich and information packed. And I believe they're all available on Amazon. And that's it for me. If you have questions about anything that I went over today, I realize I went over a lot of information quickly. If you have questions, feel free to reach out to me and I'll answer them.
That's lovely, Vicki. It's
Thank you.
would you please stop sharing,
Yes.
and let's open our mics and get our hands together for Vicki and her beautiful and powerful presentation.
Thank you.
Enjoyed it immensely,
Thank you.
immensely.
Thank you.
Vicki, let's hear. There might be there is this comment by our friend and colleague Ed Britton. This presentation was so well integrated with the IAC Masteries. I do celebrate that myself. I find myself wondering how I might integrate all of this and all of the other things I learned through the IAC in the moment as I coach clients. Any advice on how to spontaneously incorporate? Thank you, Ed.
Yes, thank you. So the thing about CIQ, conversational intelligence, is it really is about preparing yourself. I use that word priming your brain. So if you think back to the dashboard that I showed you with the bright colors, checking in with yourself before a conversation, especially a coaching conversation, and really touching base with, where am I right now on that dashboard? And you don't need the dashboard. All you have to do is think about, excuse me, am I in that place? Excuse me, 1 second. Am I in that that place of openness, trust, co-creation? Do I have any hesitation within me? Is there anything that's on my mind that's keeping me from being really present? This is important before you ever enter into the conversation. Getting yourself prepared for your coaching session and making sure you're in that state of partnering. We're putting aside ego, we're putting aside our need to be the best coach ever, and being present with your client, getting yourself grounded, heart open, and ready to be present and to follow those steps. And it would be very easy to think, okay, I'm going to somehow go through each of these steps during my coaching session. And that's not really the best approach. It's work on embodying this for yourself And maybe take one step at a time. Really practice one. So establishing a foundation of trust. Maybe you practice this one thing during several coaching sessions until you have found your stride for how to do that, and then move on to another. But don't try to, follow it stepwise, or you're going to be in your head and do the opposite of what we mean to do, which is to be present and open. I hope that answered your question.
That was very clear. It was
That was very good.
clear. Thank you. Thank you so much, Vicky. Thank you so much, Ed. And I'm wondering if there anyone else who would like to take this beautiful chance to ask Vicky about this powerful presentation. Let's see.
I have a couple questions lined up, Luis.
Yay, please go. Please do
First of all, Vicki, the comments that are coming in are expression of gratitude that you did incorporate the IAC masteries into this. And just so you know, that, in my opinion, you did very well with that. You asked that. One question I have is, how would you have tested your assumption in step 5? How would you have done that?
Well, first, and I feel like the most important part is really putting our relationship first, just getting right here with her, really connecting. But I was so excited as a new coach, thinking, I found this thing that I really think is going to help her, that I didn't spend enough time on the connection piece, really getting comfortable and paying attention to where she was right then, that day in our conversation. If I had done that, I could have then introduced it in a different way. Like sometimes, you know how we talk about sometimes going through the back door in coaching? I barged through the front door when I could have subtly gone around behind and maybe tested the waters, tested my own assumption that she would think positively about therapy. Maybe sharing with her a story about myself and therapy, or even another client, but really testing those waters a little bit to find out, has she heard of therapy? Does she know what it is? What is her connotation when she hears that word? Really testing it. And then if she had the negative reaction that she had, then backing up a little bit and really being with her in that moment and exploring it, really, again, testing the waters and working to understand really where she was coming from with that. And based on, maybe we would be able to get to a point where I would then be able to recommend it. But I have a feeling what I would have done had I known all of this is that I would have backed out of it and not suggested it, depending on what she gave to me as her understanding of it.
Wow.
But really test the waters.
Absolutely.
That's a great insight, and that helped me too, because I have been fired. Oh, it doesn't feel good, and I could tell I've been fired story too. So that's great. Let's see, any other questions? We have great insight, Vicki. Thank you for the presentation and the great tie-ins to the masteries. That was really, really helpful for people.
Yeah, and Vicki, if I'm able to ask a question verbally.
Sure.
Hey, I'm curious. I love the 5-step model, and I can see how it work wonderfully with a longer term engagement. Most of my engagements are 6 months to a year, but occasionally I'll do like a one-time debrief of a Hogan assessment or something. And I know I'm personally challenged with creating trust quickly enough to tell the story within a few hour debrief session. How do you find that the model translates to those very short sessions where you're only going to have an afternoon with a person?
I love that you asked this, because the amazing thing about CIQ is that when you apply it, the trust can happen so quickly. Now, the key to this, which is what so many of us get uncomfortable with, it's being vulnerable as a coach.
Right.
It's being transparent. It's being vulnerable. I think sometimes as coaches, we want to show up as the expert, and we are, yet when we show up that way, we're getting in our head. And if you're in your head, you're not in that place of we, you're not partnering, you're not listening. It's about you as the coach getting present and get really transparent and vulnerable with your client. And when you can do that, the trust happens so quickly. So, like I was saying, you don't want to get in your head and try to go through 5 steps, because then you're in your head. You're not right here. You're not present. And it's about sort of taking these steps into your heart. Don't try to memorize them. Just be with your client and look for those places where there might be gaps, and then address them. Find out what state is your client in right this minute. What's on their mind, connect with them, put the relationship first, and then look for those potential gaps, and then talk about them, put it out there. If there's something unusual happening in the room, even maybe there's loud construction noise outside. Even if you say, oh, I'm hearing some extra noise, and you actually talk about it, that is being transparent and vulnerable. But address whatever is in the room with you, either physically or energetically. When you do that, that creates trust.
Good. Thank you. Great advice.
You're welcome.
So there's a question or a thought from Tanku Mariati. Thank you, Vicki, for sharing your vulnerability. It proves that we can learn as much from what didn't go right as we can learn from what didn't go right as much from what went right. And even in the technology glitch, I noticed your grace and your poise through that situation. So,
I really feel vulnerability is something that is missing in coaching. And depending on how we were trained, you may feel that it's inappropriate to show any vulnerability as a coach. But if your focus is to create trust and to really get to that place of co-creation with your client, you have to be vulnerable. It's something that I've been working on for years, is just, I'm a human being connecting with a human being. That's what this is about. And so I have to show up as my human self, which means sometimes there's tech glitches. Sometimes your lighting isn't awesome. Sometimes you mess up your words, but that's not what any of it's about. It's about this. It's about us being here together.
Right. Thank you. Luis, shall I go on with some of the questions? We have time, right?
I would like to make a comment. Thank you, Martha. Thank you, Vicki. Number one, this has been a wonderful, wonderful, very enlightening conversation that you have brought to us. I have been following Judith Glaser for a number of years. In all, today when you depict her as egoless, that touched my heart, because it's so easy to go hard on someone from the ego, and we can also disguise our ego as being sweet, and that is very deceptive. And the real being present that you showed today as Judith being very present is when you can really get there and be put the ego behind. Be here for that person and create a we experience as she portrayed and fought for so many years. You have brought back to my life Judith Glazer, and I'm gonna go deeper into that subject. Believe me, Vicki, thank you so much. I appreciate every word you said today.
Thank you, Luis. I adored Judith Glazer, and I just I'm so honored that I was able to train with her and experience that before her death. I don't think I mentioned that. She died in 2018 from cancer. And I just hope to get out there in the world and, demonstrate this for people and to live up to her legacy and to just share it.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
More question, another question. Susan has a question. Vicki, do you have suggestions for priming? And she put that in quotes. I'm not sure what she meant by that. A client who is hijacked, whose amygdala has been hijacked, and they are in a space where they are not capable of hearing anything.
Yeah, that's a really great question. So something I didn't mention is that when your amygdala is triggered and your brain is flooded with cortisol, it takes approximately 24 hours or more for that cortisol to naturally clear and for your brain chemicals to come back into balance. So and I'll say, most of the time when that happens, what we do is we sit and we ruminate on whatever happened. And the more you ruminate, the more cortisol is pumped into your brain, which means the results of that, your prefrontal cortex being shut down, lasts even longer. So if you're in a conversation with somebody who's clearly having an amygdala hijack, you can have an influence on them and on their brain chemistry by being very present, transparent, vulnerable. However, it's going to take a while for their brain chemicals to come back into balance. So my best suggestion is to back away from whatever the triggering subject was for now. But if it's a coaching client, you're going to come back to it. You're going to coach on it. But don't try to push forward in the moment. If you're certain your client is having an amygdala hijack, their brain has to have some time to come back into chemical balance.
Yes. Very powerful.
Oh, Vicki, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you. An honor.
You do have your slide on how people can get in touch with you.
Yes. You can go to coach@VickiGarcia.com. coach@VickiGarcia.com.
Great.
And that's my email address. And you can, feel free to shoot me an email if you have questions.
That's great. So I echo Luis's words about how, as you know, I too followed her Judith's work. So I'm back on it. And I want to thank our wonderful audience today. The questions, your thoughts, don't be shy. Contact Vicki if you have more questions. Go back and see how the masteries tie in for you. A special thank you to you who did submit questions. I hope we got to them all. And let's see. If you want to recheck us, certifiedcoach.org. Again, don't be shy. Mark your calendars for a great week, our great speakers coming up all week. So tomorrow is the panel discussion, Through the Looking Glass, Reflections in the New Normal. Thursday, our panel discussion, Performance Coaching for Leaders, and Friday, Coaching for Climate Change. Same time, same place. It's been a pleasure being with you today, and have a lovely evening or morning or afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. A big virtual hug, everyone, just for everyone to feel together. And thank you, Shan, for being the captain of this whole thing. Martha, for bringing Vicki, and Terry, and Charlie Medina, and Carla, and Gonzalo, and everyone else that came today to share all the greetings, all the blessings. Have a lovely, lovely day.
Thank you.